What's going on, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Fightful Wrestling Weekly, brought to you by the fine folks over at Fightful.com. Be sure to check them out. Tim, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Alrighty, let's kick it off. Let's talk about Brock Lesnar to kick it off today.
Okay.
Here's what Sean had to write. Sean says, I reached out to a UFC representative about the rumor that Brock Lesnar wasn't allowed at UFC 230 because of New York's athletic commission. Featured a brawl akin to the Khabib not going to attempt to pronounce his last name versus Conor McGregor.
You want me to say it?
Go ahead.
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
You lied. Donovan Dijakovic. Conor McGregor, the one that took place last month. The UFC rep... What? What is
Denied
that
the
word?
claim. Just go with that.
It's a big word that Sean used, and I don't know the word. Denied the claim that, and said that the UFC welcomes Brock Lesnar to any event that he opts to attend. He wasn't expected to hear at the show. He wasn't expected to appear at the show due to his obligations with the WWE in Saudi Arabia. Anyway, now Brock winning the title at Saudi Arabia really put a sour taste in my mouth. Tasted like absolute, didn't like it, hated it, the worst. And one thing I did like was the other, not the other day, but I'm using that term loosely. And Daniel Cormier, after winning his fight, says, "Hey Brock, bring that WWE title with you. I want to be a WWE champion too." That is really, really nice to hear. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I don't know what their plan is with this Brock thing. About what their plans are after Survivor Series for him. I couldn't imagine it being too good.
I mean, honestly, people don't want to hear this, but I can see Brock working AJ at Survivor Series, and then we don't see him again till like March to build up a WrestleMania match with somebody. I know people don't want to hear that, but I could honestly see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it happening as well. I don't know.
Here's one thing though.
It worries me.
So he's gonna fight most likely Daniel Cormier for the heavyweight championship. There's a couple dates where that can happen, and one is the day before Rumble. If he's going to fight Daniel Cormier the day before Rumble, he ain't working the Rumble defending the Universal title. I think the other date's like the first week of March. So it's like he's got those two dates he can face Cormier. So I don't see him working the Rumble because he's going to be in full UFC training camp mode. You know,
I again, and this is what sucks is that when with Brock being champion, and I hate sounding like the guy that's like, "Oh, this is terrible, woe is me, this is just awful." But honestly, it kind of is because you're not gonna get a guy that's there 24/7. You're gonna get a guy that doesn't care because he has that better obligation with the UFC. So with Brock being in that full training camp mode for the UFC at the time of the Royal Rumble. We're most likely not going to get a Royal Rumble world title match. We're not. Unless they manage to somehow have them drop it before the Rumble and then do that thing where they say, winner of the Rumble gets the belt. Unless they manage to do something like that. And it upsets me. It really does. Because I just want to watch a world title match. And I'm tired of seeing SmackDown have to carry everything in the world title department. It's not fair. True. It's not fair. And it's really, really, really frustrating for me to watch.
And if you look at the TLC advertised matches, I mean the top two matches for Raw being advertised. Now plans can change, but as of right now being advertised is Seth defending the IC title against Dean and Strowman against Corbin.
And this is for TLC?
Yep.
I'm going to that pay-per-view.
Yep.
I'm going to that pay-per-view. Thanks, baby Huey. Anyway, love him. But regardless, Braun should be a champion right now.
Yeah.
Braun should be the world. And I don't know if the reports of his backstage, issues are legitimate.
I believe so.
In which, I don't know. I don't know. It worries me. There's a lot happening in WWE that just makes me go, oh, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that, like, damn feeling. Like, what could we be getting? What could we be getting right now? They're at like they're giving us 25%. What if they just gave us 50% or 75%? Like, what could we be getting from a product with a full-time world champion that's really, really good, that's really, really over, that the fans love, and then we get some great matches. We get some stuff with Drew, some stuff with Dolph, then you got the Seth and Dean feud, which is killing it. You've got a tag team division that's going good. When the thing at the top is work, it's like a classroom. When the teacher is really good, the students respect that, and the students do well because they want to make the teacher happy because the teacher is putting their heart into it. Brock Lesnar in this scenario is the substitute teacher that doesn't care and puts on like Joe Dirt for the class and sits there and plays a crossword puzzle on the newspaper. So the class isn't going to care, so they're going to slack off. But if you have the teacher that says, hey, I want you guys to do good, I'm going to do my best, and I want you guys to do your best, then it's a working relationship.
It's kind of
this isn't, and it's upsetting.
It's kind of like Vince McMahon has always said. He's not going to ask any of his wrestlers to do something he wouldn't or hasn't already done himself. And you would think whoever's your quote-unquote main champion should have that kind of a mentality as well, which apparently, from everything I've ever heard, is how Roman Reigns went. If, he expected somebody else on the roster to do something as far as the storyline-wise goes, he's going to, be the first one to go, I'll try that out, or, hey, I've done this. It's not that bad. You can do that in your storyline as a locker room leader. Now, I don't know if you can call Brock a locker room leader since he doesn't hang out in the locker room with all the other guys when he's there, but it's like if he's going to be your top champion, your world champion, shouldn't he be the one setting the example of, hey, here's how you need to do things, here's how things need to be done, let's go forward. And I guess if you want to, those behavioral issues we heard of Braun this week where he shows up late, wants to leave early, maybe he is learning from Brock Lesnar.
You know what? And it's, you're right. There's no other way that I can word that. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, the world champion needs to set the example.
Exactly. And not only that, like when you've got a world champion like Brock, it really makes people go, I don't give a shit.
Why can he get away with it and not me?
Exactly. And then that starts getting to people's head. Then you got some backstage stuff that just ends up bad.
Exactly.
I really want to know what you guys think about not only Brock being champion, but how do you think this is affecting the WWE, the guys in the locker room, the product? How do you guys think that's affecting it? Let me know in the comments. And while you do type your comment, listen to this great interview with Sean Ross Sapp and Britt Baker. Enjoy, guys.
Yeah, and the time management is definitely something I'm interested in because a lot of people who wrestle independently, Friday is a big wrestling day for them. Is that the case for you? Because as we're talking on a Friday, or is that a work day for you outside of wrestling?
So it's hit or miss. I work with at a private practice, and the dentist that I work for, he's very much embraced the pro wrestling thing. He thinks it's awesome. He thinks it's cool, which is really hit or miss because some people think if they're not in the pro wrestling world, some people look at you like, okay, you're a freaking weirdo, and then other people are like, whoa, you're so cool. So it's very 50-50, and thankfully the dentist I work for thinks it's really cool. So if I have to sneak out of work Friday early to catch a flight to go somewhere, he's really cool about like covering for me or just letting me go. With that being said, I think I've just gotten lucky where a lot of my bookings end up being Saturday, Sundays lately.
And another thing that I'm particularly intrigued by is it's integrated into your character a little bit, at least in Rise. Your Dr. Britt Baker, BMD there.
DMD.
Yes, sorry. And do you are you planning on integrating that into the other places that you work, like all around the States?
Yeah. So pretty much ever since All In, that's when I really debuted the
Yes.
Dr. Baker thing. I got my lab coat entrance jacket made, and I've been wearing that ever since. So yeah, it's not like a black and white gimmick type thing, which a lot of people in wrestling today, they don't have like the all out black and white gimmicks either. So it's not something I've completely, figured out or perfected yet, but it's something I'm definitely working towards and gonna keep tying into my wrestling because, one of the easiest gimmicks to acquire is something that you're already living. So.
And if you guys do want to see the full interview, head over to the Fightful YouTube channel. Now, this was a story. This was broken by Fightful, yeah?
Yes. Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, Fightful broke this story, and it's a story that is kind of, oh, nice. This is interesting. I wonder where they're going with this. And it has to do with really how they book shows.
Kinda.
So, yeah. Tim, why don't you read what Sean had to say about it?
So, Monday Night Raw is going to drop the Overrun. Now, I've had a lot of people since this story came out, what does this mean? So, before I read what Sean says, I'm going to define an Overrun. So, a TV show is typically supposed to end either at the half hour or the top of the hour.
Correct.
The Overrun means it's got anywhere from, in Raw's case, 8 to 15 minutes extra it's allowed to go over the top of the hour. Say, the show's supposed to end at 11, advertised and scheduled on your DirecTV guide. It says show ends at 11, but USA allows it an overrun. So that's what an overrun is, when they're allowed to go past the scheduled or advertised end time. So Sean writes, WWE's Overrun was broken by Fightful.com on 11/7/18 that they will be canceling it. Fightful has learned that Monday Night Raw has now a hard out at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, as opposed to the soft end time that they've enjoyed since the 90s. We're told this will begin next Monday and will continue for the foreseeable future. This is already the case with SmackDown Live on Tuesdays. WWE's Overrun has been a staple of the show for years, dating back to the Monday Night Wars when the company was locked in a vicious ratings war with rival WCW. The two sides would often... Huh?
It's a throwback, bringing up the Monday Night Wars.
The two sides would often tinker around with starting shows earlier or starting shows later in an effort to gain a competitive advantage over the other. The Overrun would stick around even when WWE didn't have the competition. The Overrun gives WWE additional screen time, but also allows for flexibility of the show if a segment goes long. A source close to the situation indicated that it is likely a USA Network call. WWE didn't respond to our request for a comment on the story. So typically, if you're watching Raw and the main event segment is not a match, that's usually going to start at about 10:55 Eastern. Mm-hmm. And with that 8 to 15 minute overrun, that can make it a 10 to 20 minute segment. But now things can't start that late in the show anymore.
Exactly. Which this is big. It doesn't seem big at all, but it is.
Now, I do got to preface, because I've gotten this question as well. This isn't the first step in moving Raw back to 2 hours. Raw's still going to be 3 hours. I believe when they signed the new deal with USA Network, they signed it for a 3-hour show every Monday. Mm-hmm. But it is, going to have them structure the show a little differently, because now with the hard out, which they know how to do it. They do it on SmackDown every week. They can't rely on that. All right, so the Monday Night Football game, it's going to end right before the top of the hour, so we could put something big on right at the top of the hour, and people will shoot over from the football game to come to Raw. That can't happen anymore, and I know that they do that a lot here in the fall when the football season is going on.
Yes.
So,
and then also with them, having that hard deadline, it's going to start getting us conditioned to, and I know we've kind of get it conditioned with SmackDown because they have a hard deadline.
Right.
But it's going to get us more and more conditioned to now each week we are getting a hard deadline show. Because pretty soon, 2019, which I didn't realize how close 2019 was. This is less than 2 months away. It's so scary. It's so scary. It's so scary. But with Fox going there, this is just what we're going to have now. I like it.
Right. So I think it's a good idea. Gives them a hard out. People now know, hey, the show ends at 11. You can't tune in at 10:55 thinking, I'll catch the last 20 minutes or 15 minutes of Raw. No, you now got to tune in at that 10:30 or 7:30 if you're on the West Coast time. And I think it could also maybe have to do with ratings, that quarter-hour rating and all that. But I did read in the Wrestling Observer this week that a lot of times, though, that Overrun segment is a good ratings catcher because people can show up right there at the end of the show and still see a good 15, 20 minutes sometimes. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think it's good as far as structure-wise. They'll have to be a little more strict with structuring Raw. And they will have... I want to word this properly. They can't just be like, last minute, so that went long, so this next segment can go long. No, if something goes long, now that final segment of the show either has to get cut or has to be rewritten or something. Like it's going to put more pressure on them.
It just puts more pressure on not only WWE, but the wrestlers themselves to make sure. Let's put it this way. You guys remember the meme that went around with Skrull and Skrull and Okada. That is, they have to have a hard deadline with WWE. These segments need to end at a certain time, which can also make them feel kind of like bad segments. They can make them feel, this was clearly rushed due to time constraints, or man, they're really dragging this out. They're gonna go over time,
right?
So it's interesting, but it's gonna be fun to see how it goes and have a hard deadline, which makes it easy for us to know when to go live. Oh God, folks! I really hope you enjoyed this edition of the Fightful Wrestling Weekly. Sean does a great job writing all of these up, and we thank him a lot for sending it over to us early so we can get this done. Folks, we're going to send you over to a clip of the list, and your boy. Enjoy, folks.
What's up, you guys? Sean Rossat, managing editor at Fightful.com, FightfulWrestling.com. No new episode of Listen Your Boy this week. We're going to give you all the best of. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a scheduling conflict that prevented us from filming a new show. And I've spoken on the air about how I want to keep these in sequential order as we build up to the List and Your Boy 100 on November 28th. I have a lot of cool surprises planned for that. So make sure you guys check it out. I'm checking out YouTube's premiere feature for the first time on this video. So the live chat will be open. Leave your comments below. Tell us what you want to see at Listen Your Boy 100. And enjoy some of the best of Listen Your Boy.
Let's get into it, Sean. So, first we have to set this up for people that might not be familiar, even though I think almost everybody is familiar. So there's a gentleman by the name of Jim Cornette, and there's another gentleman by the name of Vince Russo. Jim Cornette was a very well-known wrestling manager. In the 1980s, he managed the Midnight Express, very well-known.
Come on, everybody watching this knows who Jim Cornette is.
Yeah, but I like to set it up for the casuals, because like my wife doesn't really know. She knows a little, but not a lot, right? I like to set it up for the casual, Sean. All right, be patient.
Don't take 10 minutes doing it, Jimmy.
I do it in 30 seconds. Relax.
I doubt it.
Where's your Monster Energy drink? Take a sip of your Monster Energy drink. All right, that'll calm you down. Good. So anyway, in the 90s, I worked for WWE on television and behind the scenes. Later on for Impact Wrestling, later on for Ring of Honor, and he had his own promotion called Smoky Mountain. And then Vince Russo, of course, was a writer for WWE, went on to WCW, went on to Impact Wrestling. Those two have had a hate-on for years. And you can probably understand why, right? I mean, Cornette is kind of the old-school, traditional kind of mindset for wrestling. Russo was the more progressive, if you want to call it that, more controversial mind. One's from the South, one's from the Northeast. I don't know if that made a difference, but that's just a fact. And
the irony is the one from the South is the hardcore Democrat. The one from the North is pretty conservative.
Right.
Oh, the irony.
Cornette is without question the catalyst in this feud, because he's the one that's been the most vocal. And if you go on YouTube and if you do a search for Jim Cornette, Vince Russo, there's all kinds of like podcast clips and some Comic-Con type things where Cornette did the speech or whatever, where he talks a lot of shit about Vince Russo. And Russo has said some things about Cornette too. This came out recently again because Cornette did an episode of Table for Three for the WWE Network alongside Michael Hayes and Eric Bischoff. And Cornette went off about Russo because Eric Bischoff also doesn't care much for Vince Russo from their time together in WCW. and in Impact, I guess. Russo then responded to the Table for Three segment by cutting a supposed apology on YouTube to Jim Cornette that wasn't really an apology because he was shitting on Jim Cornette.
He swerved him.
Yeah, he swerved him, but he called it an apology. So what happened was, this week, I said to Sean, we were talking about this whole thing and how they've gone back and forth. And I said to Sean, do you think it would draw if I could get these guys to do a debate? And Sean said, yeah, I think it would. And I said, do you think they'd be interested? And you and I both agreed that Russo would probably do it if he was paid. He'd probably do it. Cornette was the one that we weren't so sure about. And the other thing that we didn't know is, what would be his magic number? Let's say he was interested.
Well, let me cut you off. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, sure you didn't know. The numbers that Jimmy threw out to me, now his introductory numbers were very realistic for something of this. This wasn't like something that he just tossed out. He was asking me, would you be able to go to a neutral location? Would you be able to moderate this? How would we distribute it? How would we get it out there? Like, this was a real conversation.
Yeah, this was real.
This was like not just some, we're going to offer CM Punk $1 million to do our tournament that's going to get canceled. And it was a very good possibility because Jim Cornette lives in Louisville. Right now, Vince Russo lives in Indiana. I've heard somebody posted on our forum saying he might be moving back to Colorado. I don't know anything about that. So that's a very realistic thing. That's a Monday afternoon trip for me. I can do that, no problem.
Yeah.
And I do know that Sean Oliver has made this offer before of kayfabe commentaries, and Cornette turned him down. But, since then, I mean, Jim Cornette Vince Russo is his content, by and large.
And again, I didn't want to be offensive to anybody or insulting in terms of the price. I didn't know where to start. But this was legitimate, and I even said to Sean, I said, what would be his magic number? Do you think it'd be $5,000? Do you think it'd be $10,000? Do you think it'd be more than $10,000? We didn't know. The only way to know was to hit him up. And so I sent Jim Cornette an email on Monday, June 12th. He responded to me that evening. I'm going to read my email to him, and I'm going to read his email back to me. And then I can't wait to see you. So I got to tell you, Sean, when I got this email back, okay, I chuckled and smiled through it. I don't know if everybody would have chuckled and smiled if they got an email like this. And I tease you.
Oh no!
I tease you about your sensitivity because you are hypersensitive, right? So I tease you about your sensitivity. I don't know if you would have smiled and chuckled if you got an email. I
probably
like
would
this.
have coming from Jim Cornette if it was what I think it was in response to this.
But I thought it was funny, and I'm not offended at all.
I'll say this: the few times I've interacted with Jim Cornette, I've met him. And it was very nice to me in person.
Right.
So I don't know if a lot of this is persona or what, but we'll get into that, how I feel about that, how you feel about that. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I'm going to read my email to him first because I want to make sure that nothing is taken out of context. So here's my email to him first. And I kept it pretty short. So first I say, hi, Jim. My name is James Vanderlinden. I own a wrestling/MMA site called Fightful.com, and I do a podcast on Wednesdays under the alias Jimmy Van. That's my intro. Nice and simple, right? I don't think it's arrogant. I don't think it was pompous. It was pretty cordial. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Then I get to the matter. I said, this rivalry with you and Vince Russo continues to pique the interest of online wrestling fans, and so I was wondering if you would consider doing a live debate with him if it was a paid booking. Not sure what the magic number would be for you. Would it be $5,000? Would it be $10,000? But I'm open to it if you are. I'd bring you guys together, nothing physical, of course, just a verbal debate, and stream it. Let me know your thoughts. If this is of zero interest to you, then I understand. That was it. Right? Yeah. Again, not pompous, not rude, right? It's cordial.
Basically not how you speak to me on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's not how I did not call him Bucko. That didn't happen. Didn't happen.
Something tells me that he may have called you that.
I didn't say, Sean, I didn't say, Jim, how's your mother? It was nothing like that. It was nice and cordial. He responded, and here's what he said. He said, and there was no hi, Jimmy, hi, nothing like that. He said, I really was just going to delete this, but I stopped because I had to tell you what a raving lunatic you must be to think that I would work with, cooperate with, or tolerate the existence of in any way that miserable piece of shit for $1 million, much less $5 or $10K. Not only do I have zero interest, but you have to be out of your flippin' mind to think that I will have anything to do with him unless it's standing over him with a bat, bashing his f***ing brains into grape jelly. F*** you for even writing this to me. And that was it. That was it. So he actually told me, F*** you for even writing this to me, and called me a raving f***ing lunatic. Now, So I have to say here, okay? I have never met Jim Cornette. I've never met Jim Cornette. We have never corresponded before. He doesn't know me, and I don't know him.
Jelly.
So that email that I sent him that I thought was cordial and polite, that was his response, okay? That was his response. So I guess the bad news is, and as you can see, I'm able to smile through it, and I'm not offended. I think it's funny. The bad news is he's not going to do the debate, Sean.